a crippling cyber attack that forced a major U.S. energy pipeline offline Friday.
And Ukrainian officials are assessing the damage done by a massive cyber attack on government servers.
This morning, security officials on alert for possible Russian cyber attacks, not just in Europe, but here in the U.S.
Your files are encrypted with the strongest military algorithms. Without our special decoder, it is impossible to restore the data.
Well, we're aware that a number of NHS organisations have reported that they have suffered from a ransomware attack. This was not targeted at the NHS. It's an international attack, and a number of countries and organisations have been affected.
Computers and the internet have been key components of day-to-day living in the 21st century. Most of us won't be able to do our tasks or basically live normally without it. These technologies, along with the data that it carries, prove the importance of ensuring that these systems are up and running as well as well secured for the protection, not only by the data that it handles and carries, but also by the user that makes use of such technology. Most of the technologies that we use today are built on the architecture or concept of the traditional computer, and like all computers, it too has two key components to make it work: hardware and software. Between the two, we'll be focusing on the software side, as it is one of the components that anyone could essentially make easily nowadays. It is well known that for every good thing that man-made has created, there is a bad use to it. The same goes for software. Normally, any piece of software is inherently and implicitly made to essentially run the information-related task on a computer on behalf of its user. The intent here is to get a certain task done, which normally would be just to create, edit, process, or delete a file within a system. This, of course, assumes that the user has the authority to do so. But what if you would want to do the same, or even more, to the target computer? What if you would want to take advantage of the computer, or even the data or information that is being held within the system? Conducting a cyber attack on a system by hacking it manually is one way, but it tends to be difficult, unscalable, tricky, and time-consuming. The solution? Make software that will do the cyber attack on your behalf, essentially teaching the computer to do the cyber attack for you. This kind of software is now considered to be called malware.
By formal definition, malware is defined as any instructions that were developed with the intention to cause harm. It essentially means that malware can do the following: disrupt computer operations, steal sensitive information and data, gain unauthorized access to systems, display unwanted ads, employ your computer as part of a botnet, log your activities on your computer, and other many possible uses of malware based on intent and objective. But before malware can do anything on your computer, it must first enter your system. It can do so with the following attack vectors: through malicious email attachments, plugging infected devices, installing or running programs that are downloaded from shady sources on the internet, unpatched software and operating system, and other new methods that are used by hackers. Let's say that a certain malware system somehow got into your system. How would you know if it is infected or not? Rather, what are the symptoms of an infected system? Luckily, computers do have these symptoms that can appear once it is infected. These symptoms include emails that are being sent automatically, annoying pop-ups or warnings, the browser redirects you to unusual sites, presence of unusual files or missing files, updates and/or certain programs such as firewalls or anti-malware being disabled, frequent storage drive access, degraded performance of the computer won't start up to the OS or even the BIOS, and antivirus or anti-malware alerts that pop up frequently. Just like having diseases in living beings that are caused by bacterial, viral, fungal, or parasitical origins, computers do also have these kinds of problem-inducing causes through software. There are different types of malware which are designated based on the primary function or method of its infection and/or attack on an unsuspecting system. Such types of malware include Trojans, a type of malware that seems harmless but has the intention of taking control, damaging, stealing user information, or installing other malware on a system. Viruses, a type of malware that replicates automatically by attaching themselves to another program, user file or document, or even operating system files of the computer. It has the goal of performing malicious acts on the infected computer. Worms, a type of malware that can maliciously replicate, execute, and spread itself across a network even without human intervention. It usually does not attach itself to other files. Simply put, all it takes is to let one linger into one computer in a network to infect every machine on the network. Backdoors, a type of malware that intentionally installs a method to access a system that bypasses normal authentication procedures. It allows the hacker to gain potentially unlimited access to the victim's computer. Rootkits, a type of malware that modifies existing operating system software for it to be able to hide and keep access to a machine. Ransomware, a type of malware that restricts access to the files of an infected computer until a ransom is paid to the malware operator. Spyware, a type of malware that is covertly installed on a victim's computer. It aims to spy on a user's activities on a computer or the internet in a stealthy and non-destructive manner. Finally, adware, a type of malware that provides advertisers with information about the user's browsing habits, thus allowing the advertiser to deliver targeted ads and may even serve the user with ads through annoying pop-ups. Protecting your system and effectively yourself against malware can be done with the use of anti-malware. This, however, is only a complement to the best practices of safely using a computer, especially online. There are a lot of anti-malware solutions that are available in the market. They only differ in how they detect malware and how quickly can they do so. From an alternate perspective, however, hackers also make use of different methods of evading such protections which vary in effectiveness and complexity. The topic of malware detection and evasion techniques will be too long for this video, but the long short of it is that it is basically like between adversarial nations, an arms race, albeit between cybersecurity companies and professionals versus hacking groups and hackers. The best practices are the easiest to implement and will go a long way in protecting one system against the potential damage brought about by malware. Anyone could basically do the following to protect themselves from malware. Use pop-up and ad blockers, as well as avoid clicking any pop-ups that show up in the browser or system. Download and run files only from sources you trust. Be cautious of emails, especially links and attachments found within it. Keeping system and file backups. And finally, conducting a timely malware or antivirus scan on your computers.
These days, however, most of the activities of a user on a computer do not exactly happen within a computer. It happens mostly on the internet through the web browser of a user's computer. Thus, there's a shift of focus for the hackers from just the would-be victim's computer itself to the web access of the user being targeted. Add to this reason is the much wider implementation of web apps instead of bare software installed on a user's computer or system. Therefore, there is a clear benefit of targeting the web itself as a way to gain access to users' online accounts, especially for purposes and services like social media and online banking. The threats to online or web security are designated based on each attacker-victim pair, which are malicious client attacking the server, malicious server attacking the client, and malicious client attacking another client. For this video, however, we will be focusing on the latter categories, which are malicious server attacking the client and malicious client attacking another client. For malicious server attacking the client, there is what's called clickjacking. It is an attack that uses the browser's web page rendering capability to trick the user into falsely clicking on something that they should not click otherwise. It works by placing another invisible layer on portions of the page, which obscures the real malicious link that the user interacts with. It acts roughly like card schemers, albeit, in this case, it takes in inputs from the user who thinks that what they see as legitimate form fields and buttons. For malicious client attacking another client, there are 3 attacks that could be done. These are cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, and cookie or session hijacking. The first is cross-site scripting, which exploits any existing vulnerabilities in dynamically generated web pages. It occurs when an unvalidated input is included in the dynamic content shown on the user's browser. As the name suggests, the attacker can load or inject their scripts across a website's web page, which it then could use to inject pop-ups, redirect the user to other or potentially malicious pages, and of course steal data from the user. An example of this being recognized as a threat is found on Facebook's website, which shows a warning to users that attempt to make use of the browser's developer console to insert third-party features that they find on the internet. The second example is cross-site request forgery, which is an exploit that allows a hacker to force the web browser of a victim to send malicious requests on behalf of the hacker using the victim's web session. It could be useful if the hacker intends to hide from actually conducting said malicious requests. The third and last example is cookie or session hijacking. Just a little review, cookies in web browsers are values used by the browser that hold sensitive information about the user and is also used to track user sessions. It is the very piece of data that allows you to stay as long as you'd like or as long as your system administrator allows you to. For cookie hijacking, it allows attackers to capture user requests that contain cookie values which they can use to manipulate these values, use the user cookie to authenticate, and write on the user session by assuming the identity, or just like on CSRF. For session hijacking, certain errors in session management functions can be exploited by attackers to impersonate users. Such errors include using plain text session IDs in URLs or in HTTP request fields which are prone to sniffing, and exploiting timeouts, or rather the lack thereof, where sessions are not timed out when a user does not log out properly, which is an opportunity for the attacker to make use of the session for their own use. These attacks basically take advantage of flaws in the website or having the attacker sit between you and the internet, which the hackers can intercept the traffic that go between you and the website. Luckily, just like for malware, there are also steps that users can take in order to increase their protection against web threats. These include: avoid using the Remember Me option when necessary, especially for websites with questionable security such as forums or websites you don't always use. Don't just close your browser. Always log out after use. Pay attention to the protocol used in accessing a website. Always check if it uses HTTPS, especially if it involves logging in into an account. And as always, think before you click.
Between the cybersecurity professionals and the hackers, there is you, the user. While it is expected that the software that you've paid for is reliable and secure enough to use, it is, however, not absolutely the case. Cybersecurity professionals, meanwhile, can only do so much to catch up against these hackers, which also goes the same way for them as it is an arms race. You as a user must also consider protecting yourself and being cautious enough on the internet, so as not to cause harm to your computer, your organization's IT infrastructure, or even the entire IT infrastructure of the country you are living in. As the quotation goes, prevention is better than cure. The same philosophy shall also apply to information security, as it is better to not let any vulnerability be an exploit to you and potentially to others. Cybersecurity is more than just the IT devices and infrastructure design and implementation itself. The most important aspect of it is its users that make use of it. Humans are now relatively considered as the seventh layer in the layers of cybersecurity, thus implying its importance. We have discussed that humans both play the ally and enemy in cybersecurity through cybersecurity professionals and hackers. It is up to us now, the users, on which side we should be, even in the simplest of acts that we can do to thwart any threats that we may face in a world that runs mostly on digital technology.